or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Sunshine today with a high of 8, wind chills of 14 below. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 12 below, wind chills of 31 below. Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and restaurant at 26th and Lyndale in Minneapolis. Come in for the famous Nightingale burger or the ginger tamari chicken wings. View their menu or place a takeout order at nightingalempls.com. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Good morning, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. We explore topics that get us thinking and talking, discovering the connections to ourselves, the people in our lives, our community, and the world around us. I'm Lori Fitz, host of Connections Radio Show, and today we're going to be talking about the art of ideas and how art functions to transcend in difficult times and connect us to something bigger. And perhaps with that, the ability to see and connect in new ways. Our guest today is Laura Migliorino. Laura is a full-time artist and Fulbright Fellow since 2021. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Lori Beth. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you beautifully,
Okay.
which is wonderful because you are joining us from London.
I am.
And I just want to mention to the audience, we may have some technical challenges since we are connecting in London. And I want to just thank everyone in advance as we navigate the international conversation. And it reminds me, Laura, just a couple of years before I met you back in 1979,
Oh my God.
I had a radio sales job, and the sales job was helping me go through college. And they one time asked me to do a graveyard shift. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Except I wasn't really good at multitasking. So I had like 2 records going on at once, commercials that didn't play. I read the copy. I mean, it was just an absolute disaster, but it was so bad I just got hysterical. And it became just a comic monologue. And I should have been fired with all those technical difficulties, but I was just charming enough to keep my job. So nothing could be as bad as that crazy night, my first time doing radio. So we're all good.
All right, great. That does make me feel better because I did get dropped a few minutes before we went online on the air. So we're gonna do this. Okie doke.
We're gonna do this, and I am also feeling very blessed that we have an amazing technical producer, Patrick. Patrick will see us through. He's nodding. He has been there many a time when I've had technical challenges, so I'm not needing to do the multitasking myself. It's all good. And you know me, Laura, we've known each other since the early 80s. You know, I
boy.
had a challenge about talking. So I want to get back in the day when we did meet, and I admired you then as I admire you now with your art. You had an exhibition at the Smithsonian.
Yes, a long time ago. Yeah.
It was a long time ago. I think it's right around 83-ish.
Yeah. Could be.
And what I loved about your art, it was like a aha moment. It was, I think you were the first artist that introduced to me, art as an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you were exploring at that time reality and unreality, and how we make choices and what does that look like. And I was fascinated with the ideas that went into your print. And I still have, of course, I felt very good. I went out and framed them and loved them. And they were my first really art investment. And I'm a big proponent of folks investing in art, because you not only help contribute to artists being able to do the work that they do, but it's something that I am proud to have and look forward to give to others. I mean, I have art that my family gave to me. And you were part of that. And I just want to thank you for that. And I know that at the time it was a very personal exploration with your brother.
Yes.
In looking at reality. And if you want to share a little bit about that, because I think that was some of your first breakthrough stuff as you were starting to do more shows and incredible shows.
Well, yeah, I am coming out of graduate school. We met a long time ago. I was still living in Chicago and going to the Art Institute of Chicago, and you were up here in Minnesota. And we met through our mutual friend, Cinda. And as I got out of graduate school, I came up to the University of Minnesota, and I got out of graduate school in '87. And we were smack dab in the middle of the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
And in '89, my own brother was diagnosed. And, the '80s is that decade of pushback against oppression and pushback against scapegoating. And I thought it was interesting of what is real and what's not real then, which really is what we're dealing with now, where we have alternative facts. And when I was growing up, there's a fact and there's a not fact.
Mhm.
And there was no alternative fact.
Well, and there
And
were sources that you expected to back up that fact,
yes,
and
yes.
that our journalists were capable and to be trusted in sharing what we could trust as true.
Well, what's interesting to me when I think about this is that we're old enough to remember when everybody watched the same newscast.
Uncle Walter.
Yeah, Walter Cronkite, or if you're growing up in,
Yeah.
Dave Moore in Minnesota, or
Yeah.
Bill Curtis in Chicago. Everybody listened to or watched the exact same program. And then you may have disagree or agree or take issue with it, but everybody listened to the same thing. Now we listen to these silos,
Right.
and I try not to. I try and kind of get a broad basis of news material. But now we're not all listening to the same thing, so we really don't know who to trust. And then that comes down to what's real and not real.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, we're just reinventing the wheel every day.
In your art that I have, it's this wonderful, almost looks like a crayon that just like scribbles out. Yeah.
There was a lot of angst. I had a lot of angst.
This is not real.
Yeah.
Well,
That
and then
angst is
go
gone
ahead.
away.
Yeah. It's I think it continues to be a struggle at a deeper level now.
Yes.
But at the time it felt pretty deep and pretty how do we navigate this?
Yes.
And art, I think, has a role in that. People are dropping off listening to the news, and music is being listened to more.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think sort of like it's a healing thing. We need a salve, but it's
Right.
not just about healing. I think we have to address the ideas in a new way, and art has always been able to do that. The last time you were on our show was back in April 24 of 21. You
Mhm.
were on the show with Rufus Elmer Jones Jr., who's a musician, songwriter, singer, and president of the James Weldon Johnson Foundation. You were doing some work with the Samuel Coleridge Taylor and the Americans. Want to share
Yep.
just a little bit about that?
Yeah, and actually the collaborative I did with Rufus, who I still just adore. He's still he and his wife run the James Weldon Johnson Foundation out of Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and I was a resident. I had an artist in residency there, and that's kind of when this started. When I became interested in James Weldon Johnson, his brother Rosamond, and that led to my Fulbright in London, and we'll kind of circle back to that. But that show was right after Derek Chauvin, and I think you had reminded me, had been convicted of the murder of George Floyd. And Rufus and I, African-American, deep roots in Tennessee, had collaborated on a video around the George Floyd tragedy, and he wrote the music. And one of the ways that I dealt with that tragedy was just getting out, while things were still burning, and taking photographs, and then just sort of following up with those photographs. And it was a very powerful experience to do that collaboration. And then it was great that Rufus and I could be on the show at that time. And it's just an extension. I've always felt that art always has had a political role. I mean, you look at, Delacroix, Liberty Leading the People. He's one of the greatest, Civil War, revolutionary, I should say, images. And so art has always had that role. I like to take a subtle approach. Lots of artists take really bold approaches to arts advocacy. I take a more subtle approach. I always like to say that I like to bring the viewer into the work by making it sort of luscious. and lovely and beautiful. And then I kind of slap them around a little bit once they get in there.
Come into my parlor.
So it's the project I'm working on currently, and just recently received a Minnesota State Arts Board grant. Thank you to the Legacy Amendment. Thank you to the taxpayers of Minnesota. One of the few states that still actually directly supports artists and their work. And the grant is helping me with the current chapter of my series called The Hidden Life of Books. And the fun thing I like to do is unearth histories that have been written out, rejected, forgotten about, and bring them back. And so I'm working on a series with Hennepin County Library. I'm photographing historically banned books, and you've seen the photos. They're just super luscious.
Amazing.
And then you just go, wow, that's so pretty. And then you're like, wow, that's what that's about.
Yeah, exactly.
So I like giving the viewer something beautiful to look at, to get them engaged. And it's when you talked about engagement, we need to engage people differently, which you can't keep throwing words at them. And as visual artists, I like the idea that visual imagery can be equally, if not more powerful, it to engage the viewer. And then once they're looking at it and they're like, oh, so this is about Toni Morrison's book, Beloved, and or The Bluest Eye, which is one of the top most banned books in history. Wow. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about that in our next segment. But before we go to the next segment, go to commercial before the next segment, I wanted to mention about Photo Matter Collective. It's a newly formed group that you're a part of, photo educators. It has an opening tonight. There's a reception. This is Saturday, January 18th from 6 to 9. It is at the Northside Art Space Lofts, which is 229 Irving Avenue North in Minneapolis. And the title of it, which caught my attention, With Liberty and Care for All. And in our next segment, I want to lead off and have you tell a little bit about your experience in working with that and the goals of that show. And then we'll have a chance to talk about the work in London, which I'm so excited for you about.
All right, so, sounds good.
Wonderful. Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we'll continue our conversation with Laura Migliorino, artist and Fulbright Fellow, about how do we look at art and answering some questions for ourselves and transcending in difficult times to see something bigger. We'll be right back.
This is JP Darbogosian here to tell you about our special live broadcast of The Gailey Show from Queermunity Monday, January 20th from 2 to 3 p.m. I will have a special guest joining me on Monday to discuss how we as the LGBTQ community can protect ourselves and support each other from Project 2025. Matt Llewellyn-Otten, Outfront Minnesota's Director of Organizing and host of AM 950's Downright Upright show, Philip Anthony, will be joining me during the live broadcast to talk about how we can come together as a community. The live broadcast from 2 to 3 p.m. will be at Queermunity, which is a resource center and social club committed to bringing the LGBTQ+ community together in the Twin Cities. Queermunity is located uptown on Hennepin Avenue, south of Lake Street above Majors and Quinn. They have a great cafe that will be open during the broadcast that has food and beverages. Join us Monday for the live broadcast and stick around afterwards to meet and mingle. Find more information about the event and Queermunity on the AM 950 radio website and the event section.
Hi, I'm Mary T, inviting you to experience our integrative Mary T Health and Wellness Center, offering physical, occupational, speech, and lymphedema therapies. Experience our guided imagery, meditation, Tibetan medicine, dry needling, massage services, including cupping and oncology massage. Sign up for our free wellness screenings and learn more at marytwellness.com. All major health insurance providers are accepted. Come for therapy, experience wellness.
8 years ago, over 100,000 Minnesotans marched to the state capitol, standing together to defend women's rights, immigrants' rights, queer rights, and justice for all. Now, as our freedoms face new threats under an incoming administration built on oppression and divisiveness, it's time to stand together again. Join the People's March on January 18th at the Minnesota State Capitol. Together, we'll send a clear and unmistakable message. We will not go back. Building on the legacy of the Women's March Minnesota, this year's event will include a march to the Capitol and a rally. You'll connect with Minnesota organizations working to protect our rights. These organizations need your support, not just now, but over the next 4 years and beyond. The weather may be cold, but our commitment is unbreakable. The stakes are too high to stay silent. Let's show the strength of our voices as we fight for Minnesota's future. Again, that's the People's March on Saturday, January 18th at the state capitol. Details at womensmarchmn.com.
Whether you rent or own a home, we all likely have nightmare stories about home maintenance, or what I like to call home cringe moments. Join me, your host, Katie Shahan, for the Yarlow Home Cringe Show. See what home cringe-worthy stories we have for you each week as we talk with local home service pros. Learn best practices for winterizing your home or what to look for after a hailstorm. Listen to the Yarlow Home Cringe Show every Sunday at 2 p.m. or on your favorite podcast app.
You may not think of it, but winter is a great time to take care of those exterior home projects. This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction. Most people wait until the warmer months for their exterior home projects, but labor costs are actually lowest in the winter. And that's true for the contractor I trust, Snap Construction, arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation contractor in the metro. Are you noticing ice dams on your house, or is your furnace constantly running and you're still not comfortable? In addition to your exterior home projects, winter is also a great time to get your insulation checked with a free energy audit from Snap Construction. The average cost to upgrade your insulation is oftentimes less than a new furnace. Plus, there are rebates available from your energy provider when you upgrade your insulation. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. So don't wait for prices to rise in the warmer months. Get a free estimate now by calling 612-333-SNAP, 612-333-SNAP, or go to snapconstruction.com.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm Lori Fitz, the host of Connections Radio Show, and our guest today is Laura Migliorino. Laura is a full-time artist and a Fulbright Fellow since 2021, and Laura is joining us from London. Welcome, Laura. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Is all going well technically?
So far, so good. I'm good. Yes, we're good.
Good. Well, we were just talking before we went to commercial, not only about a current show that's coming up. Again, I want to plug it. It's called it's a photo. Give me the name of this again. I've got the details here.
Photo Matter Collective.
Photo Matter Collective. Thank you. It's at the North Side Art Space Lofts, 229 Irving Avenue North. The opening reception is tonight. And the name of the show is With Liberty and Care for All. And if you want to share a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm going to give a big shout out to my fellow photographer and photo educator, Sarah Stampedro, who lives in this particular building. And she curated the show for the collective. And I think it was in response to a lot of concerns and anxieties that many people feel with the incoming administration as of Monday. Push, potential crackdown on freedom of speech, pushback on, political dialogue. And also, I think, and I give a lot of credit to Sarah for this title, I think for many of us, we felt that with the election, there was just this lack of kindness.
Yeah, the care.
And care. Yeah, and care. Like, well, we don't care about people anymore. We don't care about.
That's one of the hardest for me, is there's just seems to be a total disregard for anyone but themselves. And that's
and
really
so she did a great job of tying liberty and care together. And I think that they go hand in hand. So again, big shout out to Sarah for coming up with this theme. So those of us in the Photo Collective, which is a pretty loosely organized, we're getting tighter, and Melissa Borman, who's a photographer and teaches at Century College, was sort of the start of this collective, but we just started having critiques, looking at each other's work, and it just grew. And we had our first show last year at Rochester Technical Community, at RCTC Community and Technical College, Rochester, Minnesota. And then we are just opening a show tonight And I do think that that was one of the things. Is not only am I concerned, or people in my sphere concerned about our liberties, gay marriage, access to abortion rights, freedom of speech, housing, things that healthcare, things that concern us, but just also this sort of cruelty that has been introduced into the dialogue, and like being mean is cool, and
Yeah.
being mean is okay, and it's awful, and I hate it,
Yeah.
and it sounds terrible. I don't mean it in bad, but it really
Well,
depresses me.
it's creating an impetus for your art, which I think is important. There's a
Yes.
passion to that. Just as we talked a little bit about in the 80s, there was a passion to speak out.
Mhm.
And I think we're at that point again. If anything, also, you and I've lived through that period of time, and
Oh, yeah.
we're kind of like the elders of the tribe now, and we
Mhm.
can say we can do this.
Mhm.
Times have been difficult before, and artists can speak out and do more.
Yes.
Which I find, very reassuring. I don't feel like I'm completely lost at sea without a tether. There's at least a lifeline, and I think the lifeline is art. And how do we express ourselves and grow with our art and learn from our art? With your art, I also want to talk a little bit more about the hidden life of books.
Right.
I've got a section I pulled from one of the pieces you sent me. The book is a simple yet complex idea that has profound influence on culture, society, and religion. It transcends time and civilization. The book is the foundation of the humanities because literacy and words influence the direction of human life. The impact of books and knowledge contained dictates human history. The written word influences religious and political policy, supports the powerful, and inspires the repressed. In early manuscripts and written words spoke to the privileged, and images informed the poor and illiterate. Yet both groups need books to guide their lives. We know how powerful books are because they often threaten the autocrat, the powerful, and they go to great lengths to destroy and suppress the book. It is no surprise that the Nazis burned books. In doing so, they attempted to burn history, knowledge, and cultural icons. Throughout the book's existence, humanity fought over access to the richness within each page and the knowledge it holds. The book has survived burnings, censorship, and the digital age, and it continues to thrive. Talk to me about that.
Wow, did I write that?
You did. You did.
I
And
did.
you shared it with me.
Wow. I grew up in a family where reading and books were, really important. My mother loved books. But when we think about just history, even relatively recent history, I mean, literacy is a huge game changer for the quality of anybody's life. So whether we go back to the medieval period or even, 21st century, if you can read, and if you can read well, the quality of your life increases. The quality of your life is better. Words, and this is interesting from someone who's a visual artist, but words and access to knowledge is life changing. And when we restrict people's access to reading, or we harness it and try and contain it to only the privileged few, we're disenfranchising a lot of people. And that's why I think literacy is so important. And it is why autocrats go after that. They want to dumb down the educational system so that there are no critical thinking skills. People do not know how to read and work through material and make good decisions or their own decisions. And then banning books is right at the top. Burning them is right there.
Now, this
So
was
it's important.
Was this part also of your Fulbright?
Yes. Yes. So I've been working on this series starting in 2017 called The Hidden Life of Books. And each chapter is unearthing bits of history that have been lost. And generally, histories that have been lost have been histories of women, history of marginalized communities, histories of people not in the mainstream. And so we're trying to archive. I like to try and pick out those histories and highlight them through my photographs. So my Fulbright was exploring James Weldon Johnson. And a lot of people, he's still not a household name, but it's getting better. He is known, his song is known more than anything else, which is Lift Every Voice and Sing. It's the Black national anthem and the official song for the NAACP. But James Weldon Johnson was not like, was in his time super famous, but 100 years later, hardly anyone knows who he is. So I came over to London to do a Fulbright at the British Library, and there I photographed books around James Weldon Johnson, Rosamond Johnson, his brother, Paul Laurence Dunbar, another African-American poet from post-Reconstruction, and their relationship to a mixed-race British composer, Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who, again, in his day was hugely famous and then dropped into oblivion. And just about 5 years ago, people are starting to look at his work again.
And some of the work that you've been doing in looking at this is also, does it tie also to your Dream Lovers opera?
Yes, it does. So that's one of, there we go, Dream Lovers. So I'm co-producing with another Fulbrighter, and Will Byram and I were in the same cohort. He was in graduate school. I was a scholar, so slightly different program. And basically, I started to infect everybody with the Samuel Coleridge Taylor bug. And so he started to, so he, and he's a dancer and into opera. So that's kind of his background. And just casually, I was over here last year, I did a solo show of that work at Stanley Arts. And that is where Samuel Coleridge Taylor was a resident conductor, and he grew up in Croydon. So it's really his home. And walking into that hall for the first time and standing where Coleridge Taylor conducted, I actually wept. It was amazingly emotional. So I was just sort of blathering to Will about this Dream Lovers opera, because he's an opera art director for operas, and he was at Guildhall over here. And I was like, and it's a 25-minute opera, and all of a sudden he just took the ball and started run with it. And it's such a rare opera. We think that it's only been performed 5 times in 100 years.
Oh, wow.
So we are producing it. We've raised the money. We're already in the thick of meetings. We're starting rehearsals next week here in London, and we will be performing the rare opera Samuel Coleridge Taylor and African-American poet Paul Laurence Dunbar. And he's the one who wrote the libretto, and he's from Dayton, Ohio. So we're super stoked.
Oh, it's a transatlantic national opportunity. So it's happening on February 13th and 14th.
14th, yeah, it's Valentine's Day. So everything is pink.
Mm-hmm.
We're going with pink clouds. And then I photographed the score, which we got from the Royal College of Music. And then the images that I have photographed will be integrated into the staging in these pink cloud formations. So I haven't seen it yet. We haven't gotten that far. So first performance is Friday night, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Then there are 2 performances on the 15th, 2 o'clock matinee, which is what they call here a relaxed performance, kind of more or less for people who might have some disabilities or some kind of you need sort of a chill environment. And then the final performance is Saturday night, and I can't believe it's happening. Pinch me. Yeah, we're so excited.
So if there's some Twin Cities folks out there that want to go to London and see this, it's going to be a tremendous performance. I'm hoping that it goes so well that you want to bring it back to Minnesota.
We really do. And I've got a couple of ideas in the hopper to bring it to Minnesota. So don't think for a second that isn't already on my agenda. It's on my radar. Absolutely.
I love it. And with that, we've got to go to break again. But in our next segment, we're going to continue talking about what ways artists and communities can engage with art for larger social and political dialogue, just like we've been talking about. What can that look like, and how can we support that? So with that, I look forward to having you come back in just a few minutes after our commercials, Laura.
All righty.
Here's Freddie Bell, host of New Beginnings, designed for those of us more seasoned, I'll say, with informative talk on everything from health, finance, local and regional news, volunteerism, spirituality, and even a bit of humor tossed in. So if you're proud to be a more seasoned listener, tune in to New Beginnings Sunday afternoons at 1 right here on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, AM 950.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our listeners. How important are business values to you? When you need high-quality digital print, it matters who you work with. You see, Minuteman Uptown is unique. We're one of the only union print shops in Minnesota providing our team with living wages and benefits. We believe in second chances for justice-impacted individuals who want to contribute to the community, and we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
Winter reading, losing yourself under a blanket with the fireplace blazing away while submerging yourself in a book and trying to finish just one more page? Winter nights are the perfect time to read, and that's where Next Chapter Booksellers can help. They're independently owned and have all the bestsellers and new releases. Not sure what to get? Their friendly booksellers are great at recommendations. That's your winter reading headquarters. Next Chapter Booksellers off Snelling and Grand. More at nextchapterbooksellers.com.
Minnesotans are hardy. We don't let snow or ice get in our way. We have places to go, so making sure your vehicle is in prime shape for winter driving is so important. Take your vehicle to Rudy Luther Toyota for all your service needs. I was just there. I got my oil and filters replaced, and they did a complete safety check to make sure my vehicle can tackle winter. And they service all makes and models of vehicles. Head to RudyLutherToyota.com and use their super easy Toyota service schedule to set up your service appointment today. Rudy Luther Toyota on the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, my name is Katty from Minnesota Recovery Connection.
And I'm Erin with Minnesota Recovery Connection.
We'd like you to listen to our show, Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. It is on Saturdays at 10 a.m. on AM 950.
On the show, we discuss topics about addiction, understanding substance use disorder, the many pathways to recovery, and finding your personal journey.
Listen to Redefining Recovery Saturdays at 10 a.m. and find our podcast on your favorite app.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Sunshine today with a high of 8, wind chills of 14 below. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 12 below, wind chills of 31 below. Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and restaurant at 26th and Lyndale in Minneapolis. Come in for the famous Nightingale burger or the ginger tamari chicken wings. View their menu or place a takeout order at nightingalempls.com.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we've been talking about ideas that matter. We've been talking about art and how art can make a difference. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and our guest today has been Laura Migliorino. She is a full-time artist and a Fulbright Fellow, and she's joining us from London. We're so glad you're here, Laura.
I'm here.
and technology is working.
So far, so good. I'm pretty happy about this. Yeah, we're good.
It is. We've got the fates on our side in a nice way. We were just talking about the Dream Lovers Opera. You've got me all excited at the possibility of it someday coming to the Twin Cities. I would love that. It reminds me of the old Punchinello days. Where
Oh my God, we had so much fun. So much fun.
Punchinello is a theater group in the Twin Cities that Laura and I. It's bigger than theater. It was sort of a community of artists in many ways that came together, writers, artists, and there's still the spirit of Punchinello between us.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So, as I was thinking about the next 4 years and art and artists and communities, I'm struck that the work that the community can do in partnership with the artists. And we've been also mentioning the Photo Matter Collective. This is a newly formed group of photo educators. It's opening tonight. Today is January 18th, so Saturday, January 18th. And with that, it's going to be up at the Northside Art Space Lofts, 229 Irving Avenue, North Minneapolis. There's an opening reception this evening from 6 to 9. And the title is With Liberty and Care for All. And we were talking about how do we bring back kindness and how do we bring back care?
Yeah.
It's almost like a call response art can be. The call is liberty, which is so important, and exploring what ways do we want to preserve and safeguard our liberty. But as you mentioned, Sarah,
San Pedro.
San Pedro encouraged care as being something that bands us together as well. When a community can come to see art like that, I always like to encourage if there are artists there to have the conversation with the artists. When you are at an exhibit or an opening, what sort of questions do you want to have in dialogue with the folks that are coming to see your work?
Oh, I love to have those conversations. And, I think particularly Minnesotans are a bit shy. I grew up in Chicago, so we're much more likely to kind of go, what's that? And have that conversation. But I would like to talk to people about how can we bring kindness back into civilization, into the common culture. I will say, and I do say, and I'm proud of Minnesota, I do think that we still have a very kind, polite culture in the upper Midwest, but all of in fact, worldwide, we have lost that empathy for others. And it has become so much an us or them. And that somehow if you get something, I'm getting, I'm losing something.
Right. The pie is only so big. So if you got a bigger piece of the pie, that means I got a lesser piece of the pie. Instead of looking at, how do we just make the pie bigger?
Or how do we just make more pies?
Yeah. There's a lot of different pies out there, people.
I mean, that was always my conversation about gay marriage. And it was like, look, it's not like there's only X number of marriage licenses printed in a year. And that if you have more people asking for marriage licenses, you're less likely to get one. They can print more.
Yes.
But I do think that liberty and care is inextricably linked. So when people, I'm not going to be there tonight, I'm sad about it, but please go in. It's a great show.
You are in London, so I think you get a pass.
I get a pass. I think that viewers should talk to artists, and I do think they're a little intimidated to ask them questions. But artists love to be, we like to talk about our work, and we don't get to. As artists, visual artists, we work more in isolation, whereas my friends who are actors and musicians, they're physically present in the work. So when we have a show, it's kind of one of those rare opportunities we can kind of crawl out of our hole and have a conversation. So any question really that people have, like, why did I make this? And how did I decide on that theme? And even a technical question, how do you get those pages to look all fuzzy? So anything like that. So I really encourage people to ask, because we want to talk and we want to share our ideas and with everybody.
And I think what's important when I am taking in art is, like, I trust that if something confuses me or something, like, well, why was that the subject, and what intrigued you about looking at that and bringing that to life for us? That you don't always have to be complimentary. And art isn't supposed to necessarily be something that you just is pleasing. I think it's something that should cause question and cause a deeper reflection. And what does it bring out? And what's the opportunity of thinking bigger when you look at art? And so much of your art, as I mentioned earlier, is idea art. And I love ideas. But what idea comes to you when you look at that art and then have that dialogue? I think the more that we can start talking about ideas and not just listening, but actually being in dialogue with artists, I think, can be very healthy, and it can start allowing us to stretch in ways that we might not have stretched before.
Well, I think people sometimes feel like they look at a work of art and they're confused by it, then they feel diminished in a way. They feel like, oh, I must be stupid because everybody else is getting this. And that's not true. Sometimes artists want you to be confused because that confusion sparks thoughts and ideas and conversation. And I stress to people, if you don't get something, that's okay. In fact, that's good. That doesn't mean you're stupid or that anybody else in the room is getting it either. So I'd like people to get past that, that bad feeling of not getting something, because everybody brings, I always say to my students who I taught 37 years and retired in May,
congratulations,
from Anoka Ramsey Community College. But I would always tell my students is that when you come to work, look at a work of art, you're bringing your entire personal history to that piece that day.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and
how you're going, yeah.
So
how
when
you're
you
gonna
bring that,
perceive it-
when you bring your entire self, and you do, I mean, it's
Yeah.
all your memories, all what you're even feeling at that moment, tactically,
Absolutely.
visually, orally, all of those things,
Yeah.
you are radically present
Yeah.
in front of art, and everything is to be drawn from. And it can be an adventure, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
it-
And you can feel differently about the same work of art on a different day.
Mhm. Well, I think that's what the treasure of purchasing art can do.
Mhm.
I can say, I had mentioned, as you know, in the beginning of our show, about how yours was the first art that I purchased as an investor in art, but it wasn't really an investor. I was intrigued, and our first conversation was, I didn't quite understand what was this about.
Mhm.
And when you started to talk to me about what it was and what it, I can still look at that piece today, how many years later, you know,
Mhm.
over 40 probably at this point.
Oh yeah.
And I can look at it and go, it still intrigues me.
Yeah.
There is the emotion that you put into looking at boxes, and how boxes interface, and how lines don't always quite match up. And it's been a lifelong looking at it. And look at 40 years, I have a whole different context of bringing myself to that art, but that art is still very powerful for me.
Yeah, that's why we like to go back to the museum and revisit our old friends.
Yes.
You never get tired of looking at Rembrandt's Lucretia at MIA, the MIA.
Right.
It always speaks to you. You go back and you go, wow, yeah, you know. So that's the joy of having art around. And I think people unfortunately feel that art is something for the elite, and it's really not. You can buy cheap, inexpensive art from artists directly. We love to sell things. We'll cut you a deal. We'll put you on a payment plan. And you're right. You get to get up every day and look at that. And every day you feel differently about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it becomes like friends in a way, you know,
Yeah.
of this, the art, of course, is yours, Laura. I mean, but it takes on a life of its own too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That has its dignity and has its space of you brought it to life. And it's both of our friends in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
that we can treasure, which I think we need to find treasures in this period of time. It feels like a lot of treasures are slipping through our fingers in terms of what we believe in our liberty, and what we believe in terms of what our rights are. It's
Which
hard
I think,
to,
you know, that I'm sorry, I get so excited. I just want to start
go. Yes.
I just think that, you know, so that conversation we had a little earlier about liberty and care, as we move into this next administration, artists are going to be the voice for the next 4 years, and artists have always been the voice of human nature. When we look at some of the great political artists and their art, so for example, Goya and the disasters of war are still some of the most horrific, powerful images, and they've stayed with us for hundreds of years. And earlier I mentioned Delacroix's Liberty Leading the People. These are artists. Art is the legacy of human life. So when we go visit something, go to Rome, we're not looking at the ledger and we're not looking at the advertisements. We're looking at the art and architecture that civilization left us. We are that. And then we're going to be writing that chapter in the next 4 years.
You spent some time in Rome, didn't you?
Oh, I'm Italian American.
But for your art, I remember there was something that you went.
But I did. Yes, I had a fellowship at the American Academy in Rome for 1 month. And that's when I started The Hidden Life of Books. It was actually that particular collection.
And so what inspired you at that moment to find the trigger that has basically been moving you forward and looking at The Hidden Life of Books for a long time?
Well, one was the fellowship was an interesting fellowship, and it was through the Community College Humanities Association. And the idea was to collect and create images, art that then could be integrated into the science curriculum, and was the merging of art and science. And so you're talking about, let's say, astronomy, and then you can look at Galileo's books. And then they were photographed in a way that were abstract. So again, it's about engaging the viewer in a different way and getting back to the curriculum. And so I was very interested in that particular project of merging art and science together. And then I moved on to next chapters.
And tell me about the other chapters.
Oh God, I knew you were going to ask me this question. Okay. So I think it's the American Academy in Rome. Then it's the James Weldon Johnson Foundation Archive. Then it's the Queer History Collection at the University of Minnesota, the Tretter Collection, which is a big, huge, fantastic opportunity. Then it was Sammy Coleridge Taylor and the Americans at the Eccles Institute at the British Library. And my current project, Banned and Burned Books.
And that's exciting because you are looking to be working with the Hennepin County Library this November.
Yes, this actually, I think Banned Book Week, the dates change, but I think this year, don't quote me, so Google it. I think this year, 2025, Banned Book Week in the United States is October 3rd to the 11th or something in there. And that's when we are going to premiere the Banned Book series at one of the public libraries. We're not going to do downtown. We want to go to the suburbs.
Sure.
Yep. So that is in the works. And again, thank you, the state of Minnesota taxpayers and the Minnesota State Arts Board and the Legacy Amendment for providing funds for artists like me to do this project.
Absolutely. And we'll plan to do a show. Again, I'd love to hear about, we'll do it prior to the Banned Book Week.
That'd be awesome.
And you can share about the things that you have been doing and exploring with that as well. I also wanted to have you just kind of give me big picture things that you can see happening in the next 4 years for us to all be working on. What are some things that we in the community can do to support art? It has, a strong voice, but it's a voice that needs to be listened to, and a voice that we need to, pay attention. So as we have community folks that go, yeah, I want art. I want art in my life.
Yeah,
I want
right.
to be thinking about these things. I want to be able to go to shows and talk to people.
Absolutely.
What are things that you see?
I think one of the more, this is all creative arts. This is dance, theater, music, etc. The most important thing, and particularly in the next 4 years, is attendance, showing up.
Mm-hmm.
You want to push back against the naysayers who are saying that art is not important. We see, when school systems, and I understand, I'm very, very sympathetic, when school systems run out of money or they're running short on money, they cut the arts. It's the first, I always thought about the idea that if you couldn't have recess because it was raining, well, we were going to have art during recess. And it just diminishes how important the arts are as an educational tool. They teach skills that you don't get in other courses. And I'm not saying that those courses don't provide important skills. They do. But arts, we know that if you're good in music, you're good in math. And I'm good in neither of those things. So that makes perfect sense. I can't do math and I'm terrible at music.
But
I'm a
you
music
love it.
appreciator.
You do love it.
I'm an appreciator. And I'm one of those people who appreciates music. And so I go to the St. Paul Chamber. We're members. I go to the Minnesota Orchestra. I go to small ensembles. I am a buyer and purchaser of music. And that's the most important thing, particularly in the next 4 years, to prove to people that the arts are important and show up. And that's all you really need to do. Be there.
And be there and invite others, perhaps, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bring the crew.
Right. There are times that I think that, COVID, we all got locked in and got isolated and
Yes.
had to figure out who we were
Yeah.
again.
Very painful.
I think this may be a time where we're figuring out who we are.
Yes.
Going from me to we, and
Mhm.
and perhaps some of the ungraciousness, we'll call it,
Mhm.
that seem to be in our society is an outgrowth of almost being snappy at after being locked in our COVID stage.
Well, yeah.
And
Think of your dog who's stuck in a kennel for a while.
Exactly.
They're like, get me out of here. I think you're very right. I think you spot on, Lori Beth, about isolation, breeds this kind of antisocial behavior and selfishness. We did survive a pandemic. I mean, if you read about plagues and you read about the 1918 flu pandemic and you read about these sort of global disasters, they have a profound effect on human nature for decades. And we isolated, and then we kind of came back out. We didn't know we're in a process of kind of, trying to regain our traction. And it's wobbly.
Re-engage. Yeah. Just like,
Yeah.
who are you? And who am
Yeah.
I? And we have, and there's a discomfort. And so there's a comfort in just being around what you know and you like.
Yes.
But there's more to it. And our country
Yes.
was formed on an idea
Yes.
that we're all created equal. And if and when we believe if we believe that, the time is now to be a supporter of it, which
absolutely
makes me very happy that the name of your the artwork is with liberty and care for all.
Yeah, I'm
And
very proud of this show, and I'm sad that I'm not there to see it. But all of these photographers, and and it's interesting, photo educators. We're also, on the ground teaching people, and we're the last bastion. We're that last bastion of learning, skills to go out in the world, learning how to compromise with people in the classroom. It's what I love about the arts. They're very social. Students are in a dark room together, and there are 10 or 15 or 20 of them, and you have to negotiate your space. Same with glass blowing. These things are, I think they teach us amazing life skills.
so with that, I'm going to promote one more time so folks can get it on their calendar, can write it down for this evening. And this is January 18th. Today is the 18th. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Today is the 18th. I have to look back at my computer. Yes. Today is the 18th. And with that, there is the Photo Matter, and it's spelled FOTO Matter. Collective it's a newly formed group of photo educators. Opening tonight, North Side Art Space Lofts, 229 Irving Avenue North in Minneapolis from 6 to 9. It has been such a joy to have you with us, Laura. Thank you. Thank you for all
Lori Beth, always a blast talking to you. And I've loved it. All the decades we've known each other. Big hug. And thanks for inviting me. I just loved it.
Yes, and have fun in London. And we'll talk soon.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Bruce Klopfleisch. Join me every Sunday at 5